Hey everyone, B0baChef here. In this video I'm going to give a walkthrough of Tom Clancy's The Division survival game mode. Ever since its release, it has quickly become one of my favorite game modes in The Division. I find it very challenging and rewarding, especially on solo runs. Now, unlike The Division, clothing in survival has a function other than just for cosmetics. This game mode is set during a major snowstorm, which means it's possible for you to freeze and die of hypothermia. Typically, I see the temperature range anywhere from -15 to -33 degrees. So one of the first things you'll want to do when the game starts is to find the fabric and painkiller that is present in the hideout. Use the crafting station to create a piece of clothing. Anything, it doesn't really matter that early on in the game. In order to fashion more clothing or better clothing, you'll need to find fabrics, and those can be found by roaming around and looting. Clothing shops are places that have fabrics in them, but really, I tend to find them almost anywhere. With that said, you won't need to craft for all your clothing, as I often find the best stuff in apartments and subway tunnels. Other ways to beat the cold is to stand next to fire barrels or go indoors, into buildings or tunnels. I have found that you can stop looking for better clothing once you hit a cold resistance of -18 degrees. From there, you're kind of in a safe comfort range from the freezing cold. Time is a major factor in the survival game. You are exposed to the green poison, and unless you take medicine or painkillers, your lifespan is just a little over an hour in the game. Taking medicine or painkillers is basically like taking a timeout in the NFL. It stops the clock. The difference between medicine and painkillers is that medicine stops the clock longer. With that said, how long medicine and painkillers work shortens as the game progresses. A game in survival can really only last 2 hours, give or take a few minutes. So even if you just kept running around the map looting medicine and painkillers on regular intervals, you will find the effects of medicine and painkillers growing less and less effective. From what I've observed while playing survival, you will always find a painkiller in any hideout that has not been discovered by any other agent. As well, any Sierra or emergency vehicle, any Sierra tent or pharmacy, those are good places to find meds, and occasionally you might find some in the subways deep in the tunnels. At the start of any survival game, once I have crafted clothing and taken the painkiller, I always go to the map and look for the nearest helicopter crash site. The crash site will contain lootable items such as weapons, armor, and medicine. After that, I start going to other hideouts to try and grab extra fabric and painkillers, and also be on the lookout for any downed agents on the map in order to retrieve any fallen items. As you are sprinting and roaming around to find resources, be mindful of what you see and hear. You have limited visibility due to the storm, so you need to be careful to not run into a situation that you can't handle. Any voice you hear is cause of concern because it would indicate the presence of a NPC. With that said, you can use the storm to your advantage. If you see a group of NPCs hanging around in front of a pharmacy, for example, you can always wait for them to leave or fire a few shots in their direction to draw them towards you. Then, run around the opposite direction and take the long way around to get into the pharmacy to loot for supplies. As survival progresses, you'll soon find hunger and thirst warnings pop up. Now theoretically, hunger and thirst will not kill you in the game. They do, however, present side effects. When you go around looting in the game, you will find lootable objects with a yellow glow on their outline, which makes them pretty easy to find as you're roaming around the map. That outline goes away when you get thirsty. So the only way to find lootable objects from that point on is if you're almost standing in front of them. Now that doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you're running throughout the map with the clock on your life expectancy ticking down, it does make it a lot more challenging to find resources. The sooner you can find resources, the faster you can craft a virus filter to get into the dark zone in order to find the antivirals to help complete the mission. With hunger, the reason that needs to be addressed in the game is that it has a direct correlation with your health regeneration. So if you're hungry in the game, try not to get into any unnecessary gunfights, unless you know you can get into a hideout. Your health will regenerate once you're inside, regardless if you're hungry or not. With that said, once you get into the dark zone, that's a bit of a different story, as the hideouts are fewer and spread further apart than outside the DZ. Once you find enough resources, you can start crafting other items such as better weapons, gear, and more importantly, skills. Critical Pulse is vitally important in the game, and is the one I recommend trying to get first. Staying alive is key, and knowing when to avoid a gunfight is the best way to stay alive in survival. The next skill I try to pursue after critical pulse is either a turret or a sticky bomb. Either can be a great asset for you in any combat situation. After that, start looking for first aid or support station. Now your mission in survival is to extract the antivirals from the dark zone. Once you locate and retrieve the antivirals, hopefully you will have enough resources to construct a flare gun at a hideout in order to call for an extraction. However, it is entirely possible to extract without a flare gun. You can hop on another agent's extraction and both of you get on board the helicopter to finish the mission. It is also possible to extract from the dark zone without the antivirals, but I recommend not doing that as the antivirals alone count for 600 points. At the end of any survival game, a scorecard is kept and everything that you do is accounted for, from the number of NPCs that you've killed to the number of objects that you've looted. The higher the score, the more caches you are rewarded. The fight with the hunter is truly something to behold if you've never faced off with him one-on-one before. He's an NPC that moves and plays like another player, from doing combat rolls to bombing you with grenades and popping medkits. My first encounter with him, I didn't really know what to expect, so I faced off with him on the ground in the northwestmost extraction point. The fight lasted so long that even though I had almost 7 minutes left on my timer, it simply ran out. I just couldn't finish him off in that time. I had no idea he could hack my seeker mines and turret. My second encounter with him, I tried using a ballistic shield and charge him with my sidearm. It didn't really work my way, as he would eventually throw out his shock turret and melee me a few times, and it was game over. My first win over the hunter was kind of anticlimactic, as it just seemed too easy. And that's because I noticed another agent coming in, shooting at him from higher ground, from behind. From that point, I realized that one of the best ways to take down the hunter one-on-one is to make sure you are on the high ground with a marksman rifle, which makes the extraction site in Bryant Park probably the one I go to most often because I can snipe at him from the balcony, preferably with a gold or at least a purple marksman rifle. Just a cautionary side note about extractions, I made the mistake of going to an extraction site when an extraction was taking place. On that instance, I'd just gotten into the dark zone, and after hitting critical pulse, I could see the outline of a downed agent. I figured since I had plenty of time, I could do someone a favor and revive them. The moment I got up there were 3 NPCs waiting for me. I got hit with 2 shock turrets and was melted in seconds. When you've been downed and the camera starts panning around in that gray world, I could see at least 2 other agents up there who were also downed. What I realized from that experience was that if there are multiple agents in an extraction site while an extraction is being called for, you will get an equal number of hunters coming after you. I don't know if those 3 agents were part of the team or if they were just unlucky enough to wander in while someone else was calling for an extraction, but either way, you can't double team or triple team a single hunter if you are all present while an extraction is being called for. You need to stay outside of that area and then move in after an extraction has been called for to team up on a hunter. Preferably, wait until you hear firing first before coming in to try and team up. Well, that's all I have to say about survival. I hope some of this information is useful to those that haven't experienced much success in survival yet. If you feel like there is more information that should be shared, then please feel free to leave a comment. Good luck, and good gaming.
The storm's passed and things are looking up. Get back here when you can.